Program, but let me introduce you to my last guest, and we need to talk about race, Christian faith and racial justice. A Young Person's Guide is the new book from Ben Lindsay. It featuring interviews with young black Christians, including Governor B and footballer Abrichi Isse. The book introduces young people to the history of the church, helps them explore the complexities of racial and ethnic identity today, and aims to empower them to build towards a brighter future. And Ben joins us in the studio now. Ben, good morning.
Good morning, how you doing?
Not too bad, I must say. I mean, this is radio, but let me describe. You've got your jean jacket on, you've got your cap, you're looking, in a sense, it's like autumnal, and I'm trying to bring that summertime vibe.
I've got a face of radio, that's what it is. You know what I mean?
The book is fascinating. I had a brief look yesterday. What inspired you to come up with the concept and to publish it?
Yeah, so I wrote a book, like an adult's version of the book, in 2019, and when my son was kind of 9-10, he wanted to read the book, and as a parent, you're like, oh man, there's some things in that book which I'm happy to share, but obviously it's some adult content when you're talking about race and racial justice. So my son, being who he is, when I kind of said, oh, I'm not sure, he was like, well, why don't you write like a version for my age group? And that sparked something. I was like, you know what, actually, this is a really good point. We should probably be trying to write something which equips young people in understanding kind of race and racial justice and biblical principles from that. So that's the first part. The second thing is, recently there's a study from the University of Birmingham, which has basically said that young people in a school context struggle with discussing faith and race. So those two combinations, I'm like, that's really sad actually, that young people, when there's so many different things which we want to engage with.
But in the findings, did they explain or kind of go into detail as to why that's the case? Yeah,
it spoke about actually a feeling of not thinking that their teachers would really understand some of these conversations, a perception that, you know, this is a taboo subject to talk about faith and race, and that's really actually quite sad. We should be saying to young people, here's an opportunity to discuss any part of your identity. But what I realise is there's not actually many resources out there. So the reason I wrote the book was like, how do we equip young people in the context of racial justice, understanding biblical principles, to really feel confident? We've got to be honest. If we're really honest, these types of conversations are not easy to have. It is for 11 to 16-year-olds, but also I want parents, teachers, youth group leaders to also engage with this conversation. I didn't have this type of stuff when I was younger. I'm an old man. Nobody can see my face, but
you're not old.
I'm an older guy, and for me, it's like I didn't have these types of resources when I was a child.
Is it because of timing and a lot of parents now are on the go? Some parents have several jobs, and in my case, my mum, best person in the world. My mum worked 2 or 3 jobs at times. She still had time to talk to me. In fact, I was a hyperactive child, and I became an altar server, and that made me calmer, and it gave me a sense of responsibility. So I suppose that was my moment where I was able to explore the world, well, from a biblical point of view, and to get to know more about faith, and it calmed me down. As a child, I was able to have those conversations, but not many children or parents have that opportunity to have that moment where they can sit down and think, okay, what will turn me into an adult, or at least give me a sense of responsibility? Do you think it's down to timing?
Edward, I think it's a really good point actually. I feel that there is a lot more busyness. When I think back to my upbringing, my mum was always able to talk to me about a lot of these conversations. I have 3 children. It is busy, it's hectic, life is complex, but I think it's probably also, there's one thing about what happens in the home, it's another thing what also happens in other spaces, other contexts. What is the conversations happening in school? What's happening in youth groups or youth clubs? And for me, creating a resource like this, it allows other people to engage with this conversation around racial justice. I think there's a lot of pressure on parents to keep up with, even if we talk about technology and social media. it's a fast-paced world. So giving children the opportunity to engage with these types of conversations, whether it's with parents or carers or whether it's with your teachers, I think we just got to get more resources out there.
Get more resources out there, but then also for people to engage and to talk about those topics. Some people will be reluctant to even go there because they would think that we live in an atheist society where people should be allowed to think the way they want to, and by bringing the biblical element to it, they would find that not to be the done thing to do. They would say, well, look, we've got to excuse that, put that under the carpet.
Yeah, I think that's a risky tactic. I mean, reality is we live in a society with multiple narratives, and therefore, why shouldn't we have multiple forms of expression about how people see the world? I'm not advocating that this is the only resource that should be in schools.
You're providing an option.
I'm providing an option, and I'm actually encouraging other opportunities and other forms of resources to be out there. But I think for me, as a young Christian growing up, I didn't have these types of conversations happening outside of the home. And for me, one of the beautiful things about this book is that it isn't just my voice. Like you mentioned, my friends are in this book as well, you know, whether it's Governor B or about Eze, who plays for Crystal Palace, Femi Kolioso from Ezra Collective. There's people who I've known who I've said, look, your experiences around racial justice and church will inspire the next generation to have these conversations more openly, empower them, equip them, because where do we honestly get these opportunities? I didn't have people around me saying, actually, Ben, when you're going through this is another way to approach this, or have you thought about it from this perspective? And more importantly, from a Christian perspective, this is what the Bible says. Because I don't think people even look at the Bible as a justice piece of literature as well. Like, we serve a God who is of justice and who commands us to love our neighbour. That basic Christian principle is often lost.
No one talks about that.
It's lost. It's completely lost. And I think it's things like that which I think can encourage young people to live their lives. There's a lot of issues we've got going on with young people. There's a lot of anxiety.
Do you think that will help? We're always talking, in particular here at BBC Radio London, also BBC London, our TV news, there's always a story about, whether it be a sad story about connected to gun or knife crime, or about young people who are wrapped up in something that they shouldn't be wrapped up in. I always say when I hear a story, how can that change that narrative and to make sure that we don't hear stories like that again?
Well, my full-time job is that I'm a CEO and founder of a charity called Power to Fight. We empower communities to end violence affecting young people. And therefore, daily, we engage with young people, trying to help them navigate some of these things that you've said. We do that through mental health and therapeutic work in schools. We also support families who have been impacted by violence. So for me, these topics that you mentioned are all around young people. The number one thing we come up against is that we feel that young people, more than anything, are fearful. There's anxiety. There's concern. That is the main reason why you might find some young people might want to pick up a knife, or some young people are feeling this concern. It's a lot of kind of perception and anxiety and emotional health and mental health and well-being, which just needs to be addressed and supported. So again, the more resources that we can put out there, the more conversations that we can have, the more we can equip. This isn't just about young people. It's how we actually equip those who are engaging with young people, how we equip them to have these types of conversations. These conversations can be very, very awkward. The amount of adults who talk to me and say, do you know what, I wouldn't even know where to start having a conversation around racial justice and faith. These resources need to be out there, and they need to be in the mainstream as well. We can't be afraid to have these awkward conversations, because young people are having these conversations. Isn't it better to create safe spaces where you can have them?
And one of the conversations or experiences in the book from Governor B, where he mentioned there were a group of guys by his car, and they're throwing coffee at his car. At trigger moments like that, to especially a young person, that can make or break them.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about the people that we've interviewed, or I've interviewed in this book, is that you've got a variety of situations. You know, the situation you mentioned with Governor B is a really extreme one. You know, he was violently attacked. Somebody threw coffee in his face.
That's a big one, wasn't it? His car, was it his face?
Yeah, it was actually in his face. And that is a form of assault. And that is something which is obviously very extreme. But I was listening earlier on, you're talking about banter and where that can possibly go. There's other, maybe more subtle things which can also be deemed as racism. And again, in the people we've interviewed, there are lots of different stories where you've got the extremes of what Governor B went through. But, you know, there's my friend Rebecca talks about a situation where she was in her school and a person basically had said some stuff which was basically a microaggression, which was like comparing her to a gang member. And, you know, she had to deal with that in a school context. How do you deal with when people have stereotypes and misconceptions about you? How do you approach that? How do you engage with that level of stereotype and bias? And these are the type of things.
So many elements connected to that: education, mindset, also people. The people involved, who they hang out with.
Yeah, I think it's mindset, it's upbringing. I don't think anyone's born racist. I think people are, you know, it's learnt behaviour. But I think more than ever, with so much stuff going on with social media, so much things going on in the world, we've got to hold hands with young people, equip them, walk them through some of the social ills, and give them solutions.
What do you want people to get out of the book?
What I want people to get out of this book is hope, more than anything else, and encouragement. That's what I want. I want young people to feel like they've been seen, they've been heard, and that actually there are people who have gone through some of the things they're going through, and they can look at this book as a form of understanding, hope, and for them to grow up in a way where they know they are being equipped to deal with some of the bigger issues in the world.
The way you've come across this morning and generally through the book, it sounds as if you are someone's uncle who's trying to instill hope, positivity and respect, which I've got to be honest and upfront and frank and say that's been lost. There's in terms of guidance.
Yeah, I mean, when you get called an uncle, it's kind of like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm reaching that age.
You should own it.
I need to own it. I need to stop thinking that I'm young and trendy nowadays. But look, for the best part of 25 years, I've always been about the flourishing of our communities and the flourishing of young people, and for me that will continue, and that's what I want. And it's not just me, there are many people across London, across the UK who I know who are working in spaces of young people doing amazing work. But you're right, we need to stand up, we need to be seen, we need to show young people that they're not on their own, and we just want to see young people be the best version of themselves.
I can't wait to check it out. I had my guide copy. I'm not trying to get on the blag and say I want a physical copy.
You can have this copy. There's a copy here for you. I've got one. No one can see it. I've got a book for Edward.
I wasn't going.
Come on. Here you go, my friend. I'm handing it over to you now.
You're too kind. My mum's going to text me after the show and say, "Son, I'm disappointed. Should have gone to the shop. Should have bought a copy. How dare you get not this." I can't wait to go through it. It's a brilliant book. We need to talk about race, Christian faith and racial justice. A Young Person's Guide is published by, is it SPEC?
Yeah, SPCK.
SPCK, beg your pardon. And it's available now. And if you want to find out more about Ben, you can go to Ben's website, which is benlindsay.co.uk. Ben, can you keep us in a loop on how you get on? I think what you're doing is amazing because we need more guides and we need more people to at least put this conversation, at least to have the opportunity.
Definitely. No, I mean, look, this is just the beginning. I'm hoping that there's young people who will read this book. They will have their own groups, their own friendship groups, and they will have opportunities to discuss it with their youth leaders or parents. I think it's just the beginning.
Ben, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to call you the bona fide uncle from now on. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Ben Lindsay, the great author, and please check out the book. We need to talk about race, Christian faith and racial justice, A Young Person's Guide, published by SPCK. It's available now. From one legend to another, let's speak